My name is Dr. Nyangasi. I am the economic advisor to Mombasa County. I am also the convener of the Kenya Cities Forum. The Kenya Cities Forum is a forum made of the 5 city counties. These 5 counties that host the major cities in Kenya are Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, Uasin Gishu because of Eldoret, and Nakuru. The Kenya Cities Forum, just to give you some background, was formed because of some resource challenges we were having in terms of impact in service delivery. We were having trouble bringing services to the people of our country because of a few things. So we decided to pick 7 thematic areas, especially in the cities. This is water distribution, sanitation, stormwater drainage, urban mass transport, solid waste management, housing, and informal settlements. The thing about these issues, these were all Schedule 4 functions. Schedule 4 functions are functions that were distributed according to the Constitution after the passing of the Constitution in 2010. Now, some of these functions were distributed to the counties, and they were distributed to the counties without the money. They're very expensive services to provide. Given the current allocations, we are having trouble providing these services to the people of our country. I'll just give you a few examples. In fact, the last intervention in water in Mombasa was in a place called Likoni, where they connected 6,000 homes. Those 6,000 homes were connected to the water supply system by the World Bank, and it cost the World Bank 1.9 billion shillings to do 6.9 homes, just to give you an estimation, 6,000 homes, just to give you an estimation of the size of the problem. Before I go too far, and it's important that the first idea I put over there was it's a complicated concept, because even amongst policy circles, there's a disagreement on what aspects of poverty should feature with regards to resource distribution. There are a couple of basic global standards that everyone, I think, knows about. The poverty rate, how many people are poor, the poverty line, what is the level of income at which below you're considered poor, what is the poverty gap, how far below that line you are, what is the poverty severity, how bad your poverty is, and absolute poverty versus relative poverty. So there are a lot of ideas that were circulating surrounding poverty. These are generally agreed principles. There's a lot of a more complicated discussion regarding that. But, and the reason I say this is that there's some tools that were used to divide resources to deal with poverty in Kenya. There was the Equalization Fund that was guided by the marginalization policy. There's the CRA formula that was also a tool that was used. There are the other transfers like the CDF transfers, then there are social cash transfers. These are monies that are transferred to mashinani to deal with various problems. Now, the reason why the discussion on poverty is important is that all these different methods were calculating poverty differently, and so they distributed different amounts, and they distributed it based on different measures. So just like the people in the video had a lot of disagreement on what is poverty, I think institutionally we're at the same place. I think the story of poverty in Kenya, before I come to urban poverty, can be told by a single image. Rural poverty is real. It is not a figment of somebody's imagination, or it's not a creation of people in policy. It is actually a real experience people go through, and it is part of what we call the original sin of Kenya. Every country has an original sin. Like the US was slavery, Israel was how it was created, South Africa was apartheid. Kenya's original sin was that all services and all investment went along this small area you see over here. In 1965, there's something called the Sessional Paper 10 that decided to invest in the high potential areas, which led to massive poverty in areas that were not there. So this is what was previously in colonial times called the Northern Frontier District, and the people there are very poor. And when you talk of rural poverty, you're actually talking about a lot of these people, because like in Turkana, there's a 87% poverty rate. In Marsabit, there's is it 83%? And the same for the former northeastern provinces. The people are really poor in terms of poverty headcount, poverty severity, poverty gap, and all the traditional measures of poverty. Traditional measures of poverty. However, it is important to remember that we are all poor. We are actually in a poor country. The number of Kenyans in general who are poor were at 46% in 2005. That was during the Kenya Household Budget Survey of that year. But in 2016, it reduced to 36%. But overall figures don't tell the full story. There's a deeper story to our poverty. A lot of the perception now said there is that all our poverty is rural, and that if you live in the cities, you cannot be poor. But there is a difference. There is a difference in how poor the people are, and the people in the urban areas and the people in the cities. In fact, if you look at the trend line, this is just some academics. If you look at the trend line between from 1991 to 1997, rural poverty moved up from 47 to 52%, but in the urban areas, it moved from 25 to 49%. It means that the people in the cities are continuously getting poor, and the rural people, while they're poor, doesn't mean that the urban people are not poor. I think there are very many people, watu wa mtaa, who disagree with a lot of the people in the policy rooms that there's no poverty in the urban areas. And the reason I say this is that we end up in a very hot conversations when you come to resource allocation in this country. And majority of Kenya's population is poor, is rural, sorry, and that is about 70% of the population. They say 32% of the population is urban, and of that 32%, 67 to 75% live in those 5 cities. So it means that there's a very big urban population, a huge proportion of which is poor. And the reason this is important is that when you look at the policy tools that have been used to intervene in these areas, you find that none of them has been designed to deal with urban poverty. I'll just come a bit later to the effects of the policy tools in terms of urban poverty. Now, this was just to show you the differences within the different counties. You can see most of our friends from the rural areas have very large poverty rates.